Rachel Zegler might have just delivered the most unhinged response to one of Disney's biggest cinematic failures in recent memory. Snow White was marketed as a bold reimagining, a modern twist on a beloved classic fairy tale, but what Disney ended up with was a box office catastrophe. The movie flopped so hard that it left Disney scrambling for answers and Zegler squarely at the center of the controversy. Rather than accepting any responsibility for the film's failure or quietly stepping back like most actors might, Zegler chose to double down with a string of statements that have people seriously questioning whether she's completely out of touch with reality or simply no longer cares about public perception. To be clear, Snow White wasn't just a flop, it was a full-blown financial disaster. Disney reportedly invested over $300 million into the project, factoring in production costs, multiple reshoots, and an aggressive marketing campaign. In return, the studio saw a massive loss, with the movie failing to even come close to breaking even. It has now been firmly cemented in the Hall of Fame of Hollywood's most expensive failures. But even more surprising than the numbers is the bizarre narrative that Zegler has now chosen to push. Rather than owning up to the missteps or miscalculations, she's placing the blame squarely on politics. According to Rachel, the movie was never given a fair shot because of political bias. In her words, there's a silent majority of people who genuinely loved the film but are too afraid to express that publicly. That's right, she's implying that millions of fans secretly enjoyed the movie but were somehow silenced by social pressures or political fears. Her only evidence for this claim? Families and individuals she personally knows. Because people in her immediate social circle happen to enjoy the film, she's convinced there's an entire underground fan base of suppressed admirers who are simply too afraid to speak out. It's a stretch at best, and delusional at worst. If you think that claim was already out there, it gets even more surreal. Zegler also argued that box office numbers should never determine the success of a film. According to her, success isn't about how many people show up to watch, it's about the story itself. That's a curious take from someone who starred in a $300 million studio film clearly designed to draw massive audiences. It's the equivalent of a losing athlete saying the scoreboard doesn't matter after getting crushed 12-0. At some point, results have to matter. Especially when hundreds of millions of dollars and the legacy of a beloved franchise are on the line. Then, she took aim at the source material itself. Zegler said she was proud that the movie didn't follow the Brothers Grimm tale or even the 1937 Disney classic. She felt the original story, the tone, and even the reason Snow White is referred to as the fairest of them all needed to be changed to better fit the modern woman. That, according to her, was the goal from the beginning. And even though audiences didn't show up, she still believes that mission was successful. For her, the film achieved its purpose just by challenging tradition and pushing a new narrative, even if almost no one was interested in seeing it. The issue here isn't just the creative choices. It's how wildly disconnected Zegler sounds from the actual reception of the film. She continues to talk as if the movie was some kind of misunderstood masterpiece that was unfairly targeted purely because it embraced diversity, equity, and inclusion. In her view, Snow White was a victim of regressive politics and a society that doesn't appreciate progressive art. But the truth is far more straightforward. Many people, across a wide range of backgrounds and beliefs, simply didn't like the film. They thought it looked cheap, lacked emotional depth, and veered too far from what made the original a classic in the first place. There's also a noticeable arrogance in Zegler's tone that hasn't gone unnoticed. At one point, she said, "So what if we shifted away from the source material?" As if the backlash was just the result of nostalgic audiences being unable to move on. She framed the criticism not as a sign of poor execution but as proof that audiences are too stuck in the past to embrace change. And when people pushed back on her DEI rhetoric, she doubled down again, insisting that diversity should be the top priority in film and television, even above storytelling. That's a bold claim, and one that many find deeply flawed. Storytelling is the foundation of cinema, and when you place messaging above narrative, it usually shows. In this case, it showed clearly, and audiences tuned out. Now, you can't fault an actor for defending their work, but this wasn't simple defense. Zegler launched a full-on offensive. She accused critics of pushing a political agenda, blamed audiences for being biased, and framed the movie's failure as society's failure to evolve. It's not just tone-deaf, it's delusional. And it's not doing her any favors in the industry. Zegler's once promising career appears to be in freefall. Studios aren't lining up to offer her leading roles anymore. She's been relegated to smaller indie films with limited releases, including an upcoming project with Marissa Tomei that reportedly has a very modest budget and will only appear in select theaters. Just a year or two ago, she was being positioned as one of Hollywood's rising stars. Now, it's a steep and very public decline. Still, Zegler refuses to let the issue go. While Disney appears to be distancing itself from the project, quietly preparing to release Snow White on Disney Plus and move on, she continues to speak out. She remains committed to the idea that the film was unfairly maligned and that it actually succeeded in ways that matter. According to her, the real victory was how much they modernized Snow White, reshaped the character, and made the story relatable to today's audience, even though that audience never actually turned up. What's even more wild is how she's trying to redefine what cinematic success means. She stated outright that storytelling is all that should matter, not financial results. That might be a reasonable view for a small indie film funded by a Kickstarter campaign, but this wasn't that. This was a $300 million production backed by one of the most powerful entertainment companies in the world, with a decade-spanning legacy and a global fan base. When something on that scale fails, the numbers do matter. Ignoring them just makes everything seem like one massive denial spiral. And let's not forget that the warning signs were visible even before the film's release. Early footage and leaks had already sparked widespread concern. Critics, fans, and even more neutral viewers raised serious questions about the tone, the direction, and the cast's dismissive attitude during press tours. Zegler herself didn't help. Her comments mocking the 1937 original, calling it outdated, and making fun of Prince Charming's character turned off many fans. She came across as someone who was embarrassed to be associated with the story she was starring in. So it's hardly surprising that the audience didn't embrace her in return. To make matters more curious, Zegler made a cryptic comment about working with Gal Gadot, saying only, "It wasn't what I expected, and I'll leave it at that." That one sentence raised a lot of eyebrows. Was there friction on set? Did Gadot disagree with the film's direction? We don't know, but the way Zegler phrased it suggested she was biting her tongue to avoid dragging someone else into the controversy, at least for now. None of this would be so damaging if Zegler had just stepped back and let the backlash pass. But her decision to keep pushing an unpopular narrative is what keeps the controversy alive. This isn't about DEI. It's not about politics. It's about how to handle a failure. Most actors recognize when to pull back, regroup, and maybe take a new direction. Zegler did the opposite. She took a flamethrower to every bit of criticism and tried to frame herself as the misunderstood hero of a failed revolution. The fallout from Snow White isn't just a bruised ego for Zegler, it's a cautionary tale for every actor navigating fame. The way she handled the situation is a textbook case of what not to do. She alienated fans, offended critics, and positioned herself as someone who believes the entire industry should evolve around her personal vision of progress. She framed DEI not as a part of storytelling, but as the ultimate goal, one that should override tradition, source material, and even box office performance. The timing couldn't have been worse. Disney is already dealing with internal chaos, investor concerns, and a public relations mess. And yet, there's Zegler,